I want to be able to see my past. It's almost like constructing my past, attaching it all to itself so that it's like, it's a pretty solid structure, and I can like look at it and not have to be inside of it, not have to let it twist me.
It's this dream, this recurring dream I used to have when I was little. And there'd be two parallel lines, thick black parallel lines stretching out across into the horizon, and then crossing over those would be other lines, and they'd be also thick, but they'd be waving, and they'd be curved. And as the dream went on, the wavy lines would get thinner and faster. The curves would get tighter, and the straight lines would keep stretching out and getting thinner too. And there'd be so many lines, and it'd be moving so fast that I'd just have to wake up.
When I was a kid, I used to have this recurring dream. There'd be these two straight parallel lines down the center of my field of vision, and there'd be these thick, smooth, curvy lines moving over it, and the whole rhythm was like really soft and really nice. And eventually, those lines would get like skinnier and faster and grittier and more interlocking until finally it was just too much, and I had to let go of the dream and wake up.
You, and I'm not. You poop head. I'm not poop head.
When you go through experiences with someone else, you do have different perspectives and different memories of it. And often I'm called in to fill in the blanks because I have a very good memory. And so someone will ask me, well, what did we talk about this time?
My father, he'd been really involved in the Civil War in Lebanon. And seeing his life and his people, everything around him being just devastated and fucked up, and he would come home and he couldn't separate that from the rest of his life. He would bring it home. He would bring that into bed with my mother, and he just couldn't cut that part off. And when my mother was washing, when she was cleaning herself and her house and her children, she was trying to do that. She was trying to wash it away, trying to push it outside of the house.
When your entire culture and politics and environment and people are fucking each other up, and you go home and you make love to your wife, but you don't separate those different things, those different parts of yourself. You're fucked up, and you're giving it all back to her. And she, when she's cleaning her house and cleaning her body and cleaning her children, she's separating it. She's trying to get all of those things out. So it's a hard thing to make sense of. Basically, what I'm trying to do is pull together a lot of the things that have happened and not make excuses for my parents, but make sense of what they've gone through and put that in context too. And that's really what the story was all about, is like putting in context the things that a lot of people would think, like awful things had happened to me, but I hadn't even, they're not awful in the context of all the other awful things that have happened to them, and how much potentially worse could have happened if I had stayed there. So I was just sort of getting like the remnants of war, trickling down through my parents' actions.
When my sister and I were little, we used to take showers together, and the way we do it would be I'd stand away from the spray and I'd be getting all soaped down. My mother would help me, and I'd be putting the shampoo in my hair, and I'd be soap lady, and my sister would be standing in the stream of the shower, and she'd be water lady, and then we'd switch places, and we'd switch, and she would be getting all soaped down, and she would be soap lady, and I'd be rinsing myself off, and I'd be water lady. But the thing is, when our mother was washing us, when she scrubbed our vaginas, she would be really, really rough, and it would hurt when we were rinsing later.
When I was a kid, I used to take a shower with my sister. We'd It was really fun. We'd get in there and get wet, and I'd get all soapy. I'd start washing my hair, and my mom would be washing my body, and my sister would be in the water rinsing, and I'd be soap lady, and then I'd get into the water and I'd be water lady, and she'd be soap lady. But when my mother was washing our bodies, she would scrub our vaginas hard so that it would hurt, and we didn't realize that that was a strange thing until much later, when I started bathing myself and learned more about the civil war in Lebanon. Basically, it feels important to pull those things together so that I can. Otherwise, it's really hard to let them go. Hearing you tell my story was really. It was actually really empowering at first, because you were getting kind of emotional about it, and I could just watch, and it was kind of like disowning it in this weird way, like not having to be inside of it.
Telling your story was a lot different than the usual acting thing. You're always telling someone else's story, but you were right there and, listening to me do this, directing me. And so, there was the pressure of the director being there, the pressure of the writer being there, but also it was your experience. It wasn't something you'd fictionalized from something.
It was weird how much more you were owning it than I seemed to be. And it's a little bit almost schizophrenic to have two people owning your past. Being a good Lebanese girl means, shaving your legs and wearing makeup and going to school and living at home until you get married and being a virgin until you get married. And in a lot of ways, I've really radically moved away from all of that. And I've been trying to reconcile two sets of values that seem incompatible and irreconcilable. Creating yourself based not on what you've seen, but pushing from that space that you feel from, and using that as a springboard, or that as a basis for who you're going to become, even though you haven't been that in the past, and in a lot of ways create my own culture.